For 4 videos, we've talked about the surface of this industry. Brands, markups, status, the logo on the temple. Forget all of it, just for a few minutes, because I want to take you somewhere the marketing can't follow. Upstream, past the brand names, past the shiny retail floors, past even the lens labs we visited last time, all the way back to a handful of chemical plants. Here's the claim, and I'll prove it. Every pair of prescription glasses on Earth, every brand, every price point, the cheap ones and the luxury ones, traces back to a shockingly small number of factories making a few specialized materials. The brands compete fiercely, but the stuff they're all made of, it comes from almost the same place. And if just a few of those plants went dark, the whole world's lenses could go with them. Start with the shape of the thing. On the surface, eyewear looks enormous. Hundreds of brands, thousands of styles, endless choice. But we've watched that choice collapse. Most of those brands fold up into a handful of companies, and a huge share of the actual lenses, by some estimates around 45%, comes from a single one, EssilorLuxottica. Now we go one level deeper. Below the lens makers sits an even smaller layer, the companies that make the raw material the lenses are cut from, and that layer is tiny. This is a funnel. The wide mouth is the brand wall. The narrow tip is a few chemical plants. Follow it down. So what is a modern lens actually made of? Not glass. Almost nobody wears glass anymore. It's heavy and it shatters. Today's lenses are plastic, specialized optical polymers, poured and cured from liquid monomers into perfectly clear discs. There are roughly 3 families. The old standard, a resin called CR39, light, cheap, decent. Polycarbonate, tougher, used in safety glasses and kids' frames. And then the premium tier, high index materials. High index is the magic word. It's what lets a strong prescription sit thin and light instead of thick and heavy. If you've ever paid extra for thinner lenses, that's what you bought. And here's where the funnel gets very, very narrow. Because the high index material that most of the premium world runs on comes overwhelmingly from one company, a Japanese chemical giant called Mitsui Chemicals. Its product line is the MR series. And in the high index world, MR isn't really a brand, it's the default. Mitsui itself calls it the de facto standard. By some estimates, Mitsui makes around 38% of the world's high-index lens monomer. The next biggest, another Japanese firm, around 27. So 2 Japanese companies make roughly 2/3 of the premium lens material on the planet. And it's produced at a small number of dedicated plants, concentrated in Japan and South Korea. How deep does it go? In 2021, Costco, the definition of mass market, no-nonsense value, switched its standard glasses over to Mitsui's MR material. So the thin lenses in a luxury frame and the thin lenses from a warehouse club are quite possibly the same Japanese resin. And you can't simply spin up a new supplier overnight. Optical monomer is not a commodity you order from just anyone. It's specialized chemistry. Mitsui's material is built on a resin called thiourethane, refined over decades. A new entrant needs the formulas, the process know-how, and years of qualification testing before a single lens maker will trust its material in front of your eyes. That's the trap. The same expertise that makes these materials so good also makes the suppliers very hard to replace. If one drops out, you can't just call the next one. There barely is a next one. And it isn't only the high-index resin. Optical-grade polycarbonate, the tough stuff, comes essentially from 2 suppliers, Covestro and SPEC. 2. The machines that surface and coat the lenses? We covered those last time. The single biggest maker is Satislo, owned by EssilorLuxottica, around 40% of that market. Even the coating chemicals concentrate. Mitsui quietly bought up specialist coating companies too, so the anti-scratch and anti-reflective layers trace back to a short list of suppliers as well. Resin, plastic, machine, coating. At every single layer, the same thing happens. The wide world of eyewear narrows to a few names, often Japanese, sometimes the very company that owns the brands. Now zoom all the way out and look at the whole picture. On the shelf, hundreds of competing brands, a riot of choice. Upstream, that choice funnels down to a tiny cluster of specialized plants, many of them in one country. In good times, this is just efficiency. Concentrate production, perfect the chemistry, drive the cost down. It works beautifully. But concentration has a hidden price: fragility. When everything depends on a few plants, a problem at any one of them becomes everyone's problem. We've seen exactly how this plays out. In 2011, an earthquake and tsunami hit Japan's industrial coast, the same region thick with specialty chemical plants. The ripples went global. One chemical company lost around 10% of Japan's entire ethylene capacity for weeks. A single plant that made one specialty paint pigment went down, and car makers around the world had to stop offering certain colors. One plant, global effect. Now apply that to lenses. A fire, a quake, or an export restriction at just a few specialized sites, and the thin, light lenses the whole world now expects could simply stop flowing. A single point of failure, hiding behind 1,000 brand names. Now, let me be careful and fair, because this isn't a doomsday prophecy. It's not literally one plant or one company for everything. Basic lenses and polycarbonate have more sources. Chinese and Korean makers are growing fast, especially as Mitsui's older patents expire. There's some slack in the system. It wouldn't all vanish in a day. But the premium tier, the high-index materials and advanced coatings most people now want, is genuinely concentrated and genuinely thin. The industry chose this. Concentration is efficient. It lowers prices and sharpens quality. It just quietly hands you a bill that only ever comes due in a crisis. And this runs right through our part of the world. Back in 1979, Essilor built one of its big plastic lens plants in the Philippines. So the region isn't outside this supply chain, it's woven into it. Lenses for the world get finished here, but the raw high-index resin those lenses depend on, still mostly shipped in from Japan. The dependency just moves one link up the chain. So here's where we end up. At the eyewear shop, you stand in front of a wall of brands, and it feels like infinite choice. We started this channel proving how that choice narrows to a few owners. Today we followed it all the way down, past the owners, past the labs, past the machines, to the molecule itself. And even there, in the raw chemistry, the choices collapse to a handful of plants. The competition you see is real on the surface. Underneath, almost everyone is drinking from the same small well. So the next time someone tells you the eyewear market is vast and free, ask them where the lens actually comes from, all the way down.